Welcome to this week's edition of Black Authors Matter TV, where we interview the latest movers and shakers in the African American literary community. You'll meet some old friends, discover new ones, and stay abreast of the latest book developments around the country and even the world. So sit back and relax for the next 2 hours with Black Authors Matter TV co-hosts Gwen Richardson and Dr. Rhonda Lawson.
Good evening and welcome to the last edition of Black Authors Matter TV for the year. And I see, Rhonda, you have your virtual background. You go, girl. We're twins now. Put your sound on.
My computer is acting right today, so I said I'm going to surprise Gwen and actually use my Black Authors Matter TV background.
Okay, well, this is the last show of the year. And we had a great year. It's gone by super fast.
Absolutely.
And we're looking to an exciting year in 2025. So registration for the National Black Book Festival opens January 1st. A couple of people have jumped the gun and already registered. So, which is fine. We just won't be posting any of it until January 1st, well, 2nd, because the 1st is a holiday. But just be prepared and be ready. We do expect to sell out like we did last year early. So just, start setting your schedule for next year. And we look forward to seeing everybody. So something that we're doing new for next year, and I hadn't shared this with you yet, Rhonda. I hadn't had a chance. I've been between cooking and wrapping gifts, and now I'm on the HOA board in my subdivision. But we're going to be reaching out to the Divine Nine chapters all over the state of Texas. So because we had a record number of Divine Nine authors this year at the festival, and I know you coordinated getting that group picture done. And so we're going to be actually reaching out to them individually, the different chapters, alumni chapters and the collegiate chapters of all of the Divine Nine groups in the state of Texas. So we've already begun our outreach, and we're going to be doing that. We have some special things we're doing for the Divine Nine. So we really want you all in the house if you are a member of one of the orgs. And also, for all the authors who register, we'll be asking them if they're a member of one of the organizations. So we can start letting the orgs know who's going to be here from their group. So anyway,
Absolutely.
Then we're going to be having a meet and greet on that Friday night. And you always ask about a Friday night event. The Friday night, we're going to do a meet and greet with the Divine. It'll be just for the Divine Nine authors and people. So anyway, more on that later on.
That's a great idea. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Mary, it came from Mary. So that was her idea.
Mary, thank you, because I've been telling Gwen that for a while, but she listened to you. So
remember you saying anything about that?
No, I think it's a good idea though to make sure that we get because a lot of times a lot of the authors who come are members of the Divine Nine, and they want to feel supported by their organizations. So It's a great thing that you're doing. I'm planning on doing the same thing for the Black History Month Literary Weekend. When you reach out to the organizations that your participating authors are a part of, it's a better chance that they're going to come out and support their people. So it's a good idea.
Right. So anyway, without further ado, we're going to bring on our first guest. We have a very good lineup tonight. We have the first three guests have never been on the show, and so we are excited about having them. And first tonight is Phillip B. Williams, and he's an award-winning author and poet from the information that I have. And also, I wanted to let him know, and if you can unmute, so as soon as you start talking, we can hear you. We became aware of you and Joseph Earl Thomas through one of our viewers. They had a flyer that both of you all have an event. Did y'all already have it, or is it this week?
We already had it at the Athenaeum, yeah.
Okay, so they told us about it, and then I said, okay, we'll reach out to them. And then you both ended up on the same night, which that was really coincidental. So welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Well, thank you for being here.
Now, do you teach at Randolph College?
I do.
Now,
I
where is
do.
that? Where is Randolph College?
So Randolph College is in Lynchburg, Virginia, and so it's a low residency program, and they come for 10 days in the summer, 10 days in the winter, and then we teach most of them graduate students online. So yeah, we just wrapped up the winter term.
Oh, okay. I'm from Virginia,
Well,
but Lynchburg is the west part, correct? In the western part of Virginia, I think
Yes.
Lynchburg is. Yeah, I'm from the eastern part. I'm from Newport News. So,
I'm gonna guess that you teach fine arts.
Yeah, I'm teaching poetry there.
Nice, nice.
okay.
Love it.
Yeah. Now, when you teach poetry, are the people who are in your class, are they already, do they already consider themselves to be poets and they're trying to improve their craft, or are they new to it altogether and trying to figure out how to go forward, or a combination?
I think it's a combination. Everyone who applies to the graduate level, they in some part believe that they're poets and they already have, some kind of skill level that they're pretty, proficient in knowing different forms and things, but the confidence is not always there. And so we help to build that up too. If you had confidence enough to try to get into a graduate program, you should be confident enough to call yourself a poet. So we're
There
always
you
working
go.
through that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it's because there are so many different types of poetry, and maybe like for instance, they hear a lot of spoken word, so they think that they have to be like the spoken word poet. But there are a lot of poets who were not spoken word. They wrote their poetry, and that didn't make them any less poets.
Mhm.
So do you think that might be a piece of it where maybe they don't think that they're on the level of somebody who they may see a lot, like a spoken word
Mhm.
artist, or even on the other realm, maybe a written poet.
I think it's both. I think, for folks who start off in one avenue, say they start off in the written and they want to be better readers or performers of their work, they have that to try to figure out. And then there are those who start off in spoken word or slam and they want to get better on the page. Then they have to figure out, how to build their confidence in that. So everyone is aspiring to be something that is in their imagination bigger than who they are. And what we like to teach is
Mhm.
what you have is suitable enough. You just have to hone it.
It's a good way to put it. I love
Yeah.
that.
So when people go to poetry classes, they take poetry at the graduate level. What are they planning to do with it career-wise?
Who knows?
Oh,
Because there are people who go and they get an MFA, you never see them again in the publishing realm. They'll do healthcare, they'll do advertising, they'll become high school teachers, and they never will publish a book. For some, it's
Hmm.
just an experience, or for some, doing it was all they needed to see that, okay, I can write poems. Now let me go and do, the other dreams that I have. A lot of folks go into teaching in undergrad or graduate school in English programs or creative writing programs. And then some people go and get PhDs in literature or history and things like that. So it's pretty flexible what folks typically do, but a lot of people they want to become professional writers, and it's relatively challenging to do that.
Hmm.
It can be competitive, like with anything, and there are limited spaces for those who want to be professors in creative writing. So yeah.
hmm,
Yeah, I interviewed a young lady who was going through an MFA program, and I was telling her that I have 3 degrees already, but I was actually thinking about going back to get an MFA because I wanted to just have some concentrated study on improving my craft.
Yeah.
Anybody who knows me when it comes to writing is my baby. I mean, book promotion is wonderful, but I really I really concentrate on the written word. So I was thinking about going back and getting yet another freaking degree because I wanted to just strengthen my writing. Do you see some people who are doing that? They don't really need a degree, so to speak, but they're just going back. Maybe they just want to study writing or in your case study poetry or just or studying acting or whatever that
Mhm,
passion
mhm.
is.
Yeah, we have people who already have books. They already have built a trajectory in writing poems and they're known. They just don't
Mhm.
have the degree. And a lot of those people, they want to teach eventually. And because they already have the books, but they don't have the master's degree, which for writers, the terminal degree is the MFA, then they're
Right.
not allowed to teach at the university level. So they know they can write, but they need the paper to tell everybody else that they can write. Um, and we have folks
Teaching.
who come in, they're straight out of undergrad. Some people come in, they are um, retired or near retired, and they're just following that push to become the writer that they always thought that they could be. And sometimes it's just to prove that they can do something for themselves. It's not even to get published, just to say, okay, I did this.
Hmm. So you are a poet. You are a poet.
Yes.
So when did you start writing poetry? And um, do you have a degree in that, or is it MFA? Or so when did you get started with the poetry, and then how did you progress
I
with
was a
it?
little thing. I started writing when I was in first grade. And we had a teacher, her name is Mrs. Bellamy. This is in Chicago, and she had us keep journals. We were what, six, seven? I don't six. We were 6 years old, and she had us keep journals. And, we couldn't spell nothing, but we were writing in there, and that's how we learned how to spell. That's how we learned how to write. And she would check them, and just to make sure that we were doing them daily. And so I was always writing either a little story here or something that was a poem, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what I was doing. And what helped me to continue doing it was there was no one who told me to stop doing it. So I was
Mm,
constantly encouraged to do it by my teachers, my mother in particular. She had me on hooked on phonics very early, so it was always a language life that I was living. And when I got into high school or middle school, everyone was like, "Oh, you can really write." So that encouragement helped me to know that I was doing something that I should keep pursuing. Had people, showed doubt early on, I wouldn't be doing this. We have to feed into people's dreams so that they can know that they're worth living. And luckily, I had people feeding into, what I really enjoyed doing. So yeah, I was very young when I started writing, and very young actually when I knew that I wanted to do it for a living.
I think that's wonderful. I kind of went on a little tangent last night. I was talking with a fellow author. We were talking about pouring into our kids. Often our kids will express an interest in something. One of the reasons why I do an eighth and ninth grade essay contest is to pour into kids while they're still fairly young.
Yeah.
Because I think that we have come into an age where we're telling people they shouldn't go to college unless they're going for some type of professional degree, like a lawyer or a doctor or something like that. And we're telling people they shouldn't go to college, or college is a waste of money. Anybody can write. You don't have to go to college to learn to write. You can just write a
Mhm.
good story. Or why do you want to be an actor? My daughter grew up wanting to be an actress. And even though she's not acting today, acting is what propelled her to continue working to get into college. So it was
Yeah.
her vehicle to get into college. And she graduated cum laude from Clark Atlanta University
Hey,
with a theater degree. However, she's not working in that field right now, but she still has that talent. She still
mhm.
has that drive. And if she wanted to teach acting, she could do it because she's actually a very gifted actress. But I think that I don't know if it's we as a community, we feel that um the creatives are kind of a waste of money. We don't have to go to college for that. We should
Mhm.
only be sending our kids to college if they want to be a lawyer or a doctor or something like that. But
Right.
other than that, it's a waste of money. And I think sometimes we wind up trying to talk them out of doing that. But I'm on that other side where I feel like we need to pour into that. That could be that vehicle that makes them want to do bigger and better things.
Absolutely. And those lead to other opportunities a lot of the time. So for me in particular, I started off in undergrad thinking I was going to be a business major. And I got into the school in undergrad. It was supposed to be like this difficult thing to do. And so I felt strange leaving it, but I told my mom, I was like, I am miserable doing this. It's just
Mhm.
numbers and graphs and there was no heart in it. So it was a lot of information. And I thought that, oh, I would do a business degree and then I'll write on the side. But I was taking more English classes than I was taking business classes and enjoying those English classes more. And it turned out that that skill was useful in a lot of things. It was useful for when I did 2 years of HIV testing and counseling, so it helped me to communicate with the people that I was testing and get the ideas across that I was learning through all of the different trainings. It helped me to um, help with co-writing a grant. It helped me with writing different documents that needed to be written for our meetings or for different. Um, Oh, there were actually several grants, and then I had to write a piece on, what were some of the resources that we need to be better at our job. And so the lack of funding for the arts is really, you know, uh, um, uh, fascism starts with killing the artists. It starts with killing the poets. It starts with killing the arts in our schools. And then once you get rid of that creative impulse, and then it's easier to, really manipulate folks into thinking that they are only useful when they're making other people money.
Right.
You know, but we just lost Nikki Giovanni recently, and there are very few poets in the world who will also create political change and inspire people to really be more communally focused. So once you lose the artist, you lose that griot, that spiritual center. And I can see that happening now. So the investment in the arts is something that we need to reconsider, whether it be, in the US or just in our community. We need to reconsider the seriousness of, the presence of the artist in our communities.
Amen.
I agree. Now, something that you said, I'm going to differ with you about business school. It was just, I was a business major and an entrepreneur at heart. There is heart in business, but it's like writing and poetry. You kind of already need to have a heart for it.
Hmm.
If you already have a heart for it, then you see the heart in it. But if it's just, you know, numbers and graphs to you, then you won't see the heart in it. But it's like anything else. I thought when I first went to school, I thought I went for nursing,
Hmm.
even though science was my weakest subject. And what killed it for me was the first time I went into the hospital in my sophomore year, the first semester sophomore year, and I had to actually touch a stranger.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
And
wow. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you're a nurse, you have to touch people you don't know, like all over. I,
yeah.
I that I only did it once. Then that was when I got mistake.
And that was that.
And I agree with you about the heart. I think for me, the professors, they didn't have any heart in doing it. If I had a
Well,
really
it
passionate
makes
professor, it would have helped.
the professors do make a difference, and
Yeah.
the teachers when you're growing up, like you mentioned, I think you said Miss Bellamy. You know those
Mhm.
teachers that really just grab you early on, and then you never forget them. You know,
Never.
because they really change your life. Um, and you may have been fine otherwise, but they push you. Those really good teachers really get the best out of you. And
Right, right. Because they see the best in you. They
yeah,
see things that we don't really necessarily see and live in our own lives. So, yeah.
right. For me, my first one was Miss Edwards. So, and
Mhm.
she was my teacher in fourth, fifth, and seventh grade.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she moved. She moved every year. I moved. So she moved from fourth to fifth, and then she moved from fifth to seventh. So she was waiting for me when I got to seventh grade. But she was the best. She was tough as nails, but
Hmm.
she was an exceptional teacher. So you have a novel called Hours.
I do. I have it sitting
Oh,
right
you have a
next to me
copy?
too.
Okay,
Yay.
okay, yay. So we'd
Hmm.
like to take a look at it.
Oh,
It's
it's a
really,
thick one.
Hmm.
turn it sideways.
Yeah, here.
Oh
That
my
is. Those
goodness.
like
That's
at
a
least
textbook.
400, at least 400 pages. So it's a novel. It's not a memoir.
No.
It's a novel because it's historical too. It,
Yes,
it's set
yes.
in the 1800s, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. I went in there and looked at it. So tell us about the novel. Tell us about the plot just generally. and the impetus behind writing it.
Nice. So I wrote the novel Ours because my mom was telling me these stories about our family. And one of the stories she told me was about her father and how there was a woman who came to the house to look for his sister. She just wanted to hang out. But what my grandfather would do was salt his thresholds. And so there'd be sea salt on the windowsill, sea salt in the doorway. He was also a pastor. And so he invited the woman to come in to wait for his sister, and she moved like she was going to cross into the doorway. And then she stopped suddenly, and she's like, "Nah, wait." And he kept trying to convince the woman to come in, but she wouldn't do it. And so the idea is that there was something about that woman that the salted threshold protected the household against. Like she wasn't all the way, right. And so those kinds of stories that deal with alternative spiritualities, and really it's not alternative, it's just a different way of thinking about the way that we move through spirit, spirituality and religion, because he was a pastor, Christian, but then he also had these practices that were very much hoodoo based in nature, based in traditions that were passed down to him probably from his father, his mother. And so in Ours there's a conjure woman who goes to Arkansas, and she destroys plantations and takes those that she's freed just north of St. Louis to a place that she calls Ours. And so she uses her conjure to protect the town and hide the town from those who have no business knowing it exists. But because her memory is in lapse and there's some other things going on as far as how she believes in love and believes in trusting other people, it allows for her conjure to fluctuate and weaken, and then other people with their own values and their own desires come in and interrupt everything that she started. So that's the premise of Ours.
Now I noticed the cover doesn't have a female on it, does it?
It does. It does.
Oh, it looked like two men on there.
Well, some people thought that originally when they saw it, they were like, "Oh, there are two men," but the original artist depicted a woman. She just has really short hair.
Okay. Okay. Now, where are you from? Like you talked about your dad being a pastor. Was that your dad or your granddad?
Oh, granddad. I'm from Chicago.
Oh, you're from Chicago. You did say that earlier.
Mhm.
But I was referring back to the hoodoo, and where's that from?
Oh, so he was
Chicago.
from Alexandria. He was from Alexandria, Louisiana, so just north of
Okay.
New Orleans.
Okay, I'm from
Okay. So
Louisiana.
that's
I'm from
why I
New
know they
Orleans,
don't
though.
do that in Chicago. Or they might, but they got it from somewhere else. It migrated to Chicago. It's not like indigenous to the Chicago
Yeah, they
area.
probably got it from Mississippi.
So it's more southern. So now I hadn't heard about that, the sea salt. I mean, well, Rhonda's from New Orleans. So have you heard about
Mm-mm.
that, Rhonda? Putting the sea salt in the doorway to
See, well, you know what? I have heard something about it. I don't know a lot about it, but I think I've heard mention of it before.
yeah, I hadn't heard that one. But now, is that something that he actually did, or is that something that you, in your research about that period in that region, you discovered?
That's something that I was told he actually did.
Hmm.
That was a practice that he came up with. But there is in the Caribbean, there's a vampire slash spirit called the Sukuyon, and the way that people would protect from her because she sneak in your house and eat your family, eat your baby in particular. It's terrible. And so they would put salt or they put grains of rice at the around the crib or at the doorway because it was believed that those spirits need to count every individual piece of rice or salt or sugar. And if they couldn't finish before sunrise, then they'd be killed off. And so there's a tradition of it. Not necessarily in the way of not being able to cross. Like there's that too, but I was thinking more so of how, there are all these ways that people protect their houses or protect what we do, which is what's around. Salt is around, sugar's around, rice is around. Um, and so if there's a way that we believe that what we have is enough or can be made enough, then there might be ways that we can better protect ourselves and not think of it always as superstition or mythical, right? But think about it metaphorically. What do we have and how can we bring it together to make something work for us?
That's in a variety of cultures because, and I don't know if this is true of the Scottish people or not, but I watched the show Outlander,
Mhm.
which the one about the woman that passes through time. And there's one season in there where if the baby is born like sickly,
Mhm.
they they put it in the woods, and that the whole idea is that it will get taken by some fairies, because it's considered to be uh negative as far as the bloodline.
Right.
You don't want, it's like weakness. You don't want weakness in your family. So they actually were doing it to give them another path rather than be human and then just be weak. It's
Right.
like the run of the litter, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's different cultures, and of course, the whole vampire culture with garlic and all of that. Like you mentioned, crosses. So and the sunlight, sunlight does what's it clears everything up, or
Mhm.
that saying about the best way to see the how something is for real is to let sunlight hit it, and then
Mhm.
um so now your book is very, as Rhonda said, it's very thick. So what is it? Is it a long time period, or
Oh
is
yeah.
is it over what's the span of time?
So the span of time it jumps, and so it begins in the early mid 1800s, so like 1830s, and then we go a little bit farther back to um, the 1700s, and then it goes forward in time. So it's going through generations. So there are about three generations in the book, and then toward the end of the book, we'll get an extra generation. And it's the length of it is part of the genre that I'm writing in, which is the epic. And so the tale of how many heroes are there, how do they become heroes, what is everyone's story, and I wanted to write a story that took place during the antebellum period where people weren't getting lynched, they weren't getting whipped. Like these are people who have been freed. And so the majority of the book is them trying to figure out what does freedom mean to them and how do they love one another without having to imagine someone watching them and trying to assault them or terrorize them. So it was really important for me to, write everybody's story out to the fullest so that they can have, that freedom and the imagination that a lot of them weren't allowed to have in our actual history. So it was really important to me to do that.
Now, is this your first novel?
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay, but it's not your first book.
No, it's not my first book. It'll be
Yeah.
my third, yeah, my third book.
Mm.
So, with this being a novel, I know we only have a couple minutes left, but I have to ask, whenever
Yep.
an experienced writer decides to jump into fiction for the first time,
Mhm.
what are some of those differences that you see, or what are some of the things that may have surprised you about this process versus the process that you used before?
Oh man. It took 16 years for me to write the novel.
Wow.
It started as a short story in undergrad, and then I kept rewriting it and retooling it, and so it was just a much longer process to do the novel than it was for the poems. And I also learned that readers are, I mean, someone's going to be intimidated by words, period. That's just how the culture is in the US. Literacy rate here in America is very low. Um, but when it comes to poetry, people are frightened by lines. If something's written in lines, they don't want to deal with it. But they're more excited about seeing something that's in sentences, something that's in the form of a story. And I think it's because we typically see things in paragraphs, right? We have the
Right.
newspaper, our textbooks, things like that. And then with poems, we don't think that we see song lyrics or even in reading the Bible, like a lot of that is written in a way that is very lyrical, poetic, in lines. And so, yeah, when it came to the novel, it sold better than the poems.
Well, I love historical fiction, so that's one of my favorite genres. One of my two among the two of my favorites. So
Right.
it looks like something that I would be interested in reading, and I like to read it from the that period. Well, I really like all of it. I like Black historical fiction. I
Yeah.
should because that's the only historical fiction I really read by
Mm-hmm.
Black authors about us from it can be 1600s on up, you know. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's some great books written um, this with great characters. So I look forward to reading yours.
Thank you so much. I'll be honored to have your eyes and mind on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is one that I think we can dive into and just experience. We don't have to rush to the end on it. We can just
No.
experience the story.
Yeah, take your time. There's no rush, there's no competition. And there are a lot of magical elements in it too. And so when it gets historical, it's historical. And then there are other ways where it's very mythical. So it has a little something for everybody.
Okay. Well,
Wonderful.
show the cover one more time, real quick, so we can.
I sure will
So,
because it's so pretty. And I opened the flap too. So maybe, oh, you know what? No, they got her face. They cut her face off. So you can't really see it. But yeah.
okay, that's what made me think it was two young men. So I had already, I had already had written the story in my mind before you said what it was about. Anyway, anyway, Ron and I are both writers too. So, we enjoy the craft. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank
Congratulations on
you.
your book
Yeah.
and continued success with your classes, your poetry classes and all of that. You teaching the next generation or sometimes the same one
The
how to
same one.
yeah, how to write poetry.
Thank y'all so much for having me. I was very excited to get the email, the invitation. So yeah, awesome.
Well, thank you for being here and enjoyed the conversation. And we will both be reading the book very soon.
All right, thank you. Have a good
Okay,
night.
take care. Happy
Bye-bye.
holidays. Okay, I didn't get a chance to tell people that we do have a book to give away tonight. So we'll do that after this next interview. The book we have to give away is by Rhonda McKnight. She's been on the show a couple of times. And it's her book, The Thing About Home. Is the book we're going to be giving away. And the trivia will be about the book. But we'll do that after this second interview since we're running a minute or so behind. So this next guest is Vaunda Micheaux Nelson. And she writes children's books and young adult fiction. And she has quite a few books that have been published over the years. And before we get started with about your book that's coming up, you have a book that's coming out soon. But I had a question about I assume is your maiden name, Micheaux.
Yes, ma'am.
Are
Yes.
you related to Oscar Micheaux?
Well, actually, I wanted to find that out because I love family history. I'm not really sure. And at first I thought, well, we probably aren't because my father's generation, our name used to be spelled Michaux. And my father's generation, I'm not sure exactly why, added an E. And I don't know whether they wanted to spell it like Oscars or not. And so I thought, well, probably we aren't related. However, in looking at a biography of Oscar Micheaux, in the early chapters, it talks about his name, and apparently his original spelling was AUX. And so I don't know whether we're related or not. It would be nice, but I've never heard anyone in the family say that we were.
Okay. So for those of you who don't know who Oscar Micheaux was, he was a Black filmmaker. And a lot of people think that, Spike
And
Lee
author. He
was
also wrote books.
he
Yeah.
did. But people don't realize that he was in between 1919 and 1948. He produced and directed 44 feature films.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have no idea that he even existed. But he's part of African American history that doesn't get talked about. And when I saw your name, I said, I'm going to ask her if she was related to him. But sometimes the names change And for whatever reason in history, people add things. My maiden name is Day with an E, Daye.
Daye.
But when we looked at some genealogy, some of our ancestors didn't have the E. So we don't know exactly when the E got added.
Yes, yes. Well, one thing too to know is that even though I don't think I'm related to Oscar, my great uncle Louis Micheaux, some people may know about his bookstore that he had in Harlem that opened in the 30s and closed in the mid 70s. That was all Black books and really became a kind of a gathering place for a lot of the African American movers and shakers at the time. And I did do a couple of books on him, one for what young adults, and one was a picture book for younger readers
And
about
what
him
was
in
the
the
name of the
bookstore.
bookstore that he had?
It was the National Memorial African Bookstore in Harlem. It was a very historic place. And a
He's
lot of
kind of a
people don't know
trailblazer.
about him, but that's one of the reasons that I wrote the books when I was doing some family history and finding out about him myself. At first, I thought I was just going to be, doing something, putting something together for the family. But the more I found out about him and his journey, the more I
Mhm.
thought this is a story for everyone. So that's why I ended up putting it out there for hopefully, both children and young people and adults to learn
Right.
about him in the store.
Oh, that's wonderful because I mean, it's basically a trailblazer for Black-owned bookstores.
Yes, absolutely. And independent stores as well. I mean, I'm a
Yes.
very strong advocate for keeping those independent stores alive. And there are still Black bookstores around the country, but his sadly closed in the mid 70s. And these are the two. This is the young adult book, No Crystal Stair.
Okay.
And then the picture book is The Book Itch, Freedom,
Oh, wow.
Freedom, Truth, and Harlem's Greatest Bookstore. And this one is
Oh,
No Crystal Stair, a documentary novel of the life and work of Louis Micheaux, Harlem bookseller. So,
I've got to say, you scared me when all I saw was itch. I'm like, what is the name of that book?
well, it's called that because when interviewed and asked about, his starting the bookstore and the idea,
Mhm.
he said, I got the book itch.
Love it.
oh, wow. That's amazing. See, that's some information that I didn't know about you. And so I'm glad that you are discussing this. And these are things that people need to know. And there's a book that's scheduled to be released next year about Black bookstores. And I wish I had it in front of me because the person who wrote it actually called me to interview me on the phone. Um, I feel like it's going to come out in the spring. Um, are you aware of it?
Well, if it's someone talked to me too about it, and um, I don't remember what the title is. I think it's something like prose.
Yes, prose is in the title.
Yes,
Yes.
actually, if it's the same title, I have a piece in there. They asked me to write something for it about the bookstore, about my uncle's bookstore. So
Oh,
Oh,
wonderful!
that's
Because
wonderful.
I was wondering, had
prose for the
they?
people. Prose for the people, I think it's
Okay,
called. Yeah,
okay, all right.
yeah.
So we're going to work on getting her on the show, the author of the book on the show when
That'd
the
be
book comes out. Now, how many books have you produced so far?
well, I published this new one coming out, Radiant,
Okay.
is my 19th book for you. And I'm
Okay.
really excited about that.
And
Okay.
then and that book you're doing the book launch actually very soon.
Yes, on January 7th, here in New Mexico, where I live, at a bookstore, the Books on the Bosque. On,
Oh,
That's wonderful. Congratulations.
thank you very much. I think it'll be a great time.
yeah. Now,
So
are you
Keith,
from New Mexico?
Not originally. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, the
oh,
Pittsburgh area, small river town.
Okay.
And I moved out here about 30 years ago. A job brought me out here. I spent most of my working life as a children's librarian, and writing was also, I was doing that at the same time, of course, juggling two careers in a way. But So I worked with kids and books for most of my working career.
Okay.
Wonderful. So
Yeah,
can you tell us a bit about Radiant?
Well, it's historical fiction. It's a middle grade novel in verse, and my first novel in verse actually was a challenge for me and to try a new format. But it takes place in 1963, 64. It's about a 10-year-old girl who's oh, and also it's kind of against the historical backdrop of the Birmingham church bombing, the Kennedy assassination, Ed Sullivan and Beatlemania. All of those things kind of play a part in the book. But it's about a young girl who she's sort of just trying to find her way and struggling with her identity. And her mother at some point has said that in order to shine in Cooper, Dale, the main character, wants to shine. She wants to be radiant. She wants to be special. Um, Her mom said in order to shine, she may have to work harder than
Mhm.
some other people who are white. And Cooper kind of takes that to heart and and sometimes wishes she were white. And so she is dealing with the whole issue of just dealing with being a colored girl in in the world. And but she goes to a predominantly white school, but she also goes to an all-black church. And so she is in two worlds and loves being um, a brown person, a black person in church, but in school it's a little more challenging because she's got kind of an extra strict teacher this year, and there's a bully at school who won't let her forget she's the only a black student in the class. So that's sort of what this is about, and it's based on quite a bit of my own experience growing up. It's not about, autobiographic book,
Mhm.
but I did draw from a lot of my own experience in creating. It is fiction, but actually, I had a lot of fun going back to that era and reliving those years of the 1960s because they were difficult years in many ways, but in many ways it was a simpler time, and it was kind of nice to be there for a while.
And I think that's such a sad reality for so many children of the 60s and 70s because we were just getting into the Black is Beautiful movement.
Yes.
But many of us, like for instance, I grew up in a military environment where most of the kids I went to school with were white. And the white girls were the pretty girls. The white girls were the popular girls. And many of the Black girls were either trying to fit in with the white girls or trying to find our own footing. So we
Mm,
weren't always thought of as the pretty girls.
yeah.
And so I remember Whoopi Goldberg back in the 80s when she did her one woman show. And one of the characters that she played was the little girl who would put the white sheet on her head and talk about her long, luxurious blonde hair because she didn't want to be Black anymore. She wanted to be white. So I think it's easy now for kids in the 90s and the 2000s, the new millennials, so to speak, to say, I can't believe you would ever say you wanted to be white. Black is beautiful. You should be proud to be Black. But that was something that we had to kind of grow into.
That's exactly right. And one thing though about Cooper is that she's pretty lucky in many ways. She's smart. She's got a really strong family. She's got faith. A lot of the book takes place in her with her relationship with her church and what she takes away from her spiritual life.
Mhm.
But she's got a strong family, and I think that really helps her through this situation. And I pray for that for all of our young people to have
Yes.
a place, that safe place to go, that home represents something, a place that's a place of safety and love and support.
Yeah, through those years in the 60s when, not the 50s as much, because the 50s it was just getting started. And even though Brown versus Board was in the 50s, things didn't really start to pick up as far as school integration until the 60s.
Yes.
But because of the Black church being so central to our culture and our communities, that really created a balance for some of the children who were in schools where there were only a few Black people. And without the church, I'm not sure that they would have had been able to tolerate it
Well,
as
yeah.
well.
Like for me, as I said, I grew up went to a predominantly white school, as just like Cooper, and an all Black church, basically, predominantly Black church. Um, and I feel in a way grateful for that because I feel like I learned to feel comfortable in any situation, wherever I am now. As I grew older, I think that experience really helped me be stronger as an individual in any situation and to just feel like I fit in, regardless of, who the people are around me in this situation. So, and I hope that that's what happens with Cooper ultimately. We don't go that far in her life. It's only one school year, but
Oh,
I
okay.
wish that for her.
Okay, so it covers one school year.
Yes,
So
it starts in the fall of 63 and ends like in the following June.
So what grade is she in the book?
She's in fifth grade.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, 10 years
She's,
old.
Pivotal year, about 10 years old.
yeah, she's about 10. She's 10 years
Yeah.
old.
You're not exactly a little girl anymore, but you're not
Right. But
exactly a
not a
teenager
teenager.
yet.
Yeah. She's at that place where she's really finding her way. She's kind of that coming of age sort of thing. And I remember that year myself, because the Kennedy assassination, I think, we weren't used to being exposed to that kind of violence growing up, because we were more protected from it. Our families protected us from a lot of the bad news. And we only saw the news in the morning and at lunchtime and at 6 o'clock and at 10 for like 15 minutes or a half an hour. Now it's 24-hour news,
Right.
which I don't think is healthy, but that's a whole other story. Um, but I think that I lost my train of thought. I was
Okay, when it
telling that
happens.
for,
Well, you're talking about the Kennedy assassination.
oh yes,
Mhm.
thank you.
Mhm.
That was in a way, there was a certain amount of maturity, I think, that happened with a lot of us when after that, after that experience of losing the president in that way, in that violent way. And I'm sure everyone who was alive at that point and of a certain age remembers very vividly that day and where they were and what they were doing. Um, and there's a scene in the book dealing with that when they learn about that Kennedy has been killed and how the people around react. But I think that sort of was part of a little bit of a maturing process. So when I was 10, that happened. And then there were things like the Malcolm X statement and about the Kennedy assassination,
Right,
all those
right.
kinds of things that are discussed, in the home and also sometimes outside of it. But as I said, a fifth grader wasn't going to be as exposed to a lot of that as they are now, as children that age are now. And so it was probably, well, it was kind of shocking. It was very shocking for us
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah. For the whole country. That's one of those crucibles in history. Um, Similar to, well, for later generations, I know 9/11 was a major event where people
Yes.
remember where they were when
Right. And the things that play out right in front of you.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, 9/11 happened in front of people's eyes.
right.
Yeah.
Very shocking. And my
Literally.
daughter's too young to remember it. She was, let's see, she was 5. So she really, they brought them home from school. But at 5, you can't grasp, what's really going on. The way, and when I described it to her, it was a seminal event in America at the time. And the memories have faded now. Um, and some people, like people who are her age or early 20s, they weren't even alive, or they know nothing about 9/11.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
it
it's
was
just a moment in history for them, but
right.
for us who actually saw it, experienced it, it's because of 9/11. I went to Afghanistan.
Mhm.
This is a part of our lives. This is
Yes,
forever going to be
absolutely.
stitched in our lives.
Well, I remember that morning, my sister called me. Yeah, I was getting ready for work at the
Yeah,
library.
me too.
And my sister called me and she said, "Are you watching television?" I said, "No." She said, "Turn it on." And I turned it on, and the second of plane went into the building.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my gosh, I mean, it was just like, I remember that moment. And
Yeah.
then when I went to work, there was this silence, and
Yeah.
it was so quiet.
Everyone was just shocked.
Mhm.
We were at our office because we have a business, and I think someone called and said, "Are you watching?" And we had a television there, so they told us to call. I mean, they called us and said, "Turn the TV on."
Yeah.
So, and that was before the second plane. So this was just incredible. I mean, some of these events are very jarring, and some of them one positive event in the last 20 years or so that occurred was the election of the first Black president. That whole process was very life changing, for a lot of people and for the country.
Mhm. Yes.
So, and that was a positive one,
Yeah. All those moments in history. I love history. And that's sort of the reason why I write so much about it. I mean, I've done nonfiction Black history books for kids and also historical fiction. But I think part of the reason that I've kind of latched onto it is because growing up, we really didn't have very much. And so
Right.
as an adult, I feel like I'm just playing catch up. And so when I find a subject that I'm interested in, a topic, a person from our past, I want to know. I mean, I certainly am ultimately would like to get the story out to others, but my first motivation for um, looking into this story, researching it, is because I want to know about this person. Why didn't I know about this?
Right.
And when you find out, it's like, this person's amazing. Everybody should know about him. And that's the reason that I put these books out there. I want young people and adults to learn about people that have never really been gotten their due, in our history. And it's American history. It's Black history, yes, but
Mhm. But
it's
sometimes it
American
depends on who
history
talks
of our
about it
country.
most.
Yeah.
That's why more people know about Madam C.J. Walker than they do Annie Turnbull Malone,
Hmm.
because more people talk about Madam C.J. Walker.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Rosa Parks versus Claudette Colvin. I think something is coming
Exactly.
out about a book or something is coming out soon, or just came out about Claudette Colvin. So now you have won several awards. So for your books.
That's been
So
really wonderful.
yeah, tell us about that because you won several, and you're to be congratulated about that.
Thank you so much.
Tell
Well,
us
my
the
my
ones
first
that
big one, and I'm still pinching myself, that it happened. But well, certainly an earlier book, Almost a Freedom, my illustrator got an award, which was wonderful. So I was sort of riding on his coattails. He did a great job. But my first big award was for Bad News for Outlaws. It's the Remarkable Life of Bass Reeves, Deputy U.S. Marshal. I did this in 2009. And it would receive the Coretta Scott King author book from American. It's an organization through American Library Association.
And you actually won that award twice, right?
Yes, I got the award for this, and also an honor book for the book itch
Okay.
and an honor book actually for No Crystal Stair. And this one actually won the Boston Globe Horn Book Award for YA fiction, which I was real thrilled
Oh,
about.
okay.
But I love writing for writing, period. I mean, I need to write. It's like my sanity. It's a place for me to go to into my own world where I can control and be away from the rest of the real world. Um, but I really love this character, and you probably have heard about Bass Reeves now because of late there's been more out there about his story. He was a Black Deputy U.S. Marshal back in the Old West. And again, that was fun for me to go back to the Old West because when growing up, we loved cowboys and pretended to be, our people like, the Lone Ranger and um, the Rifleman and the characters from Bonanza and Wyatt Earp and all those guys. But anyway, so that was fun for me. But and I put my stories out there, hoping they're great stories that kids love them, that adults love them. But when a committee of people look at your work and they decide to honor it with an award, there's just no feeling like it because as a writer, you work really hard on these projects, sometimes for years. And it just feels good whenever you feel like somebody noticed, you know,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
somebody really noticed how hard you worked on this and that they agree that this is a great story. It just
Yeah.
feels,
The validation is great.
it
Like
really,
When you're recognized by your peers and they see what you're doing and they appreciate your work, I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. And I did want to say too about people like Bass Reeves. When we were growing up, I said we really loved the Old West. But when I found out about Bass, this Black man who was a slave and rose to be a deputy U.S. Marshal and of actually one of the most effective U.S. Marshals that ever lived. It made me think back on my childhood, how we pretended to be certain, or like our idols from the West. And sometimes we fought over who got to be this person, this today, and who got to play this role and that sort of thing. And I thought, if when I was a kid and if I knew about Bass Reeves when I was a kid, and he was among the people that we wanted to emulate, to pretend to be, that I wonder what that might have done for my own image of myself as a Black child in the world. And so I put books like this out. Like there's another Black. This is a biography too about a Black rodeo bronco buster, George Fletcher, that I never knew about. Most people don't know about. But these are true stories. And I want young people to see and adults, and I want children of color, and also I want all children to read these stories and know these people that have accomplished these great things and to see them as like part of all of our history. So anyway, that's a lot of my motivation for writing.
Well,
Well, I
we're
wish
at
we could
the end
talk
of our
longer.
time,
Yeah.
but I did mention to you that this was going to be conversational and no pressure. And see,
Thanks, I
I'm
appreciate
so
it.
glad. So, but we appreciate you. And someone from the Coretta Scott King, the awards was on the show. We met her at the Black Librarians Conference in New Orleans this
Oh,
summer, and she was on the show shortly after that. She's on the
Yes.
committee that picks the books.
There's
can't
some great
think right
people.
now.
Yeah, obviously I have a special place in my heart for them.
Yeah.
They've been very kind to me.
Okay, well, have a great holiday, and thank you so much for being on the show. And
Yes, and
congratulations
please
on
read my new
yeah,
book. I love the
her
verse
book comes
novel.
out. Yeah, it comes out January 5th.
Seven.
January
And
7th.
again, it's a novel in verse, and that was a whole new format. And if you've never read a novel in verse, it'd be a great time to try it. There's some great ones out there for youth and adults. So take a look
Okay,
at
and you
that.
can pre-order it now on Amazon. I already checked that out. So thanks so much, Wanda, for
Thank you
being.
so much for having me. It's been a wonderful conversation.
You're
You have a
welcome.
wonderful evening and
Thanks.
congratulations again on your book.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Okay, now we did say that we were giving away a book, and we indicated what the book was. So what we're going to do is tell you the trivia. The book is The Thing About Home by Rhonda McKnight. And in the book, the main character, whose name is Casey Black, I believe, is that the right name, Rhonda? Her
Yes.
name is Casey Black, because I'm going off of memory. She moves from New York City to what area of the country? And if you mention the area of the country, you will get your copy of the book. So we're going to bring on our next guest, and his name is Joseph Earl Thomas. That's an interesting avatar, whatever that is. So I want to find out what that is. But welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Thank you
And
for being
so,
here.
what was that avatar, or whatever you call it, that comes
So
on before you come on?
yeah, it's a Pokemon avatar,
Oh, it's
that I almost
Pokemon. Okay.
forgot was there until a second ago when you said, "What is that?" I got asked about that and it reminded me.
Well, it's fine. I just wondered what it was. Um, that's so you must be a Pokemon fan.
Yeah, I played together with my kids. I'm writing my fourth book when it comes out, will be in part about competition, but also about playing other kinds of games throughout one's life, coming from starting off playing basketball to like being past the age where I can play basketball for 12 hours a day and just like, walk home fine, and my daughter playing basketball to all of us playing video games together, the main one of which is Pokemon.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, I was telling Phillip, he was the first guest on the show tonight, that one of our viewers sent us a flyer of the event that you all had. Now, she sent this 3 weeks ago or a month ago, and that you all were appearing together. And she said, "What? I think these two young men would be a uh, good guest for the show." So I said,
Oh, that's
"Okay,
great.
we'll reach out to them." And it was just coincidental that you all ended up being on the same night. So that wasn't
Yeah.
planned.
It was so funny. Philip's a friend, and I showed him. I was like, "Oh, you're gonna be on the same day," and he was like, "Oh, I just
So
found
you
out
two
too.
didn't
It's the
even know
same
you
day."
were going to be on the same night?
No, no, not until I think I
And we
had
did the
shared the
flyer.
flyer with him. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the coincidence. But I'm glad because you all are kind of in a similar space. And so that's why you all did the event together, I'm assuming. Now, did you all know each other before that event was planned?
No, so well, we did know each other before the event was planned, but we know each other now because Philip moved to Philadelphia, where I'm from, and I used to be the director of programs for this nonprofit in Philly called Blue Stoop, and one of the things I did there was organize readings. So it was a reading
Mm.
series, and Philip, when I found out that Philip, I had read Philip's poetry before, and so when I
Okay.
found out that Philip had a novel out that year and was in Philadelphia now. I had reached out right away. I was like, "Hey, do you want to come read at this thing?" And so we met around that time.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, you are also um, a professor of English as well.
Mhm.
And where do you teach? I know he was at, where was he, Rhonda? He had on his t-shirt, Lancaster. Was
No, it
it?
wasn't Lancaster. And not just because you asked, I can't remember now.
No, Randolph. Was it
Yeah, that's
Randolph?
what it was,
Randolph,
Randolph.
yeah.
Okay.
Hmm. Yeah,
I
well,
I mean,
it's
I
read.
funny,
was
we'll both be
picturing it
there.
until you said something.
Yeah, that's funny. At Randolph, I teach at Sarah Lawrence in New York.
Okay. Sarah Lawrence.
Oh, wonderful.
In kind of an exclusive school, isn't it? Like
Is it? I don't know. I mean, it's a small liberal arts school.
liberal
I feel
arts
like,
school.
yeah.
Okay. It's in Pennsylvania.
No, it's like
It's in the Northeast
Westchester, New
somewhere.
York. So like a little bit north
Okay.
of like Harlem.
Okay.
Okay, no,
Yeah,
I
in like
think
a
you
little
got
suburb.
Pennsylvania because you did, I don't know if you still are, but you were a doctoral candidate at the University of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, University of Pennsylvania. I just finished last year. I
Oh,
just finished that last year.
congratulations.
By last year, I mean like, not that many months ago. Last year. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh,
Okay, and
okay.
so you got your doctorate in fine arts
In English. In English. I
in
did
English.
before that I went and I did my MFA at Notre Dame. So that was the one that was in creative
Wonderful.
writing. And
So
then I did the one in English. Yeah.
we had asked Philip, about people's
Mhm.
motivations for pursuing
Yeah.
an MFA or any type of creative type degree or any type of degree in arts. What was your motivation?
Oh yeah. That's a good question. It's funny, I was just texting her today. So a professor of mine back in the day, I did like healthcare stuff first. So I was a medic in the army for like a long time. And then I worked in like EMS and in hospitals in Philly. And I went to graduate school first for physician assistant school because that's what I thought I was going to do. And then I left that because I was in a class with Aisha Lockridge, who is a professor at St. Joseph's University there. I would take a bunch of literature and creative writing courses, but I wasn't taking it seriously. It was like my side thing. I was like, I study
Mhm.
science, and my electives are, writing or whatever, or
Okay.
English or something like that.
Mhm.
And she had told me, she was like, oh, if you get into a program for like creative writing or English, like they'll pay you. I didn't know that was I thought she was lying. I was like, why are you playing with me like that? And
What, the
she,
school was going to pay you?
yeah. So like when you do an MFA, you can, or a PhD in these things, like having it funded, which I didn't know was a thing, right? Like I wasn't aware of that. Like I didn't have people in my family who went to college and stuff. But she told me that. And then I applied to an MFA and I just left all of the healthcare stuff behind kind of as quickly as I could and
Wow.
started spending all my time. I was already doing a lot of reading and I was already taking some of those classes and stuff like that, but I started spending more of my time writing and then teaching as time went on.
See, this is another reason why we should continue to encourage our kids if they're into any type of creative discipline, whether it's writing, acting, or what have you, encourage them
Yeah.
because I have heard when my daughter was thinking of she has a degree in theater arts from Clark
Hmm.
Atlanta University, and she was thinking about getting her master's in acting as well, in theater as well. We found out that there were a number of programs that you can basically go to for free,
Yeah.
where they're basically paying you. I guess the same as I didn't realize that this was all creatives. I thought this was just the acting programs, but I guess a
Yeah.
lot of creative programs are doing this.
Yeah, I don't know if all. I don't know if all, but I mean, it would be nice, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't
It would be nice. But yeah, I mean, I have heard a couple people in like dance or theater. My daughter does theater stuff too. Now she's 12, she's younger, and yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe it at all because I couldn't fathom it coming from the sciences that people getting the, sociology, anthropology, English degrees, a lot of writing ones that you could get those funded. And I guess it still is important. Sometimes I'll say that to people just in case they don't know. I'm like, if you really wanted to, you could do this thing. Even though it doesn't guarantee some kind of job or whatever, but I think it is. I mean, I've never regretted it in a sense.
It's a good credential to have.
it is very.
Right. And you mentioned you were in the army, and so was
Yeah.
Rhonda. So I didn't know if you all were ever stationed at some.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
I did
funny.
23 years in the army.
Oh, in the army. Oh, where were you at? What was your MOS?
I was public affairs. I was in the
Okay,
Army
nice.
from 94 through 2016.
Okay. Oh yeah, you did the long haul. You stayed in there for a while. I was
Actually,
like, I could.
2017. I say 2016 because I actually went home in December, but I was officially out of the Army
Okay, okay.
in February, at the end of February 2017. You know, when
What
you
was the
can collect
last
those
place
last
you?
couple of paychecks
Yes.
while you're
Yeah.
on leave.
Never forget. That was the only time in my entire life that I had a vacation from work where somebody was paying me. I was like, this is weird. You had to do all this just to get a you had to go to literal war to get a vacation, to get a vacation. It's just not working out here. You know what I mean? Where was the last place you were stationed at?
I was in Belgium for 5 years.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, those are one of those places I'm like, while I'm in here, y'all might as well send me somewhere that I might actually like,
Well,
but
my
but they're
first
never.
duty station was Kentucky. I was mad.
Oh
I'm like,
yeah, yeah.
I joined
She
the
was like,
Army
I
for you
paid
to
my
send me to
dues.
Kentucky?
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
at
Fair,
was
least you
fair.
not
got
looking
to
forward
end
to
it
that.
somewhere. You got to end it somewhere scenic where you're not being shot at. You
Right, right, yeah. Ideal, right? Like you get your paycheck somewhere scenic where you are not in imminent danger.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a big switch from the medical field where you're dealing with, emergency. Well, EMS, that means that's kind of life and death stuff.
Yeah.
And writing is creative. It's not.
Yeah.
You can write about
He's
it.
like, ain't nobody gonna die for that for what you do with that pen.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Yeah.
But what
Mhm.
what so have you used any of that in your writing, like that experience just being in
Mhm.
there? Or did you just kind of like cut it off and then say I'm moving on with something?
Yeah, no, I mean that's it comes up a lot. So my most recent book, God Bless You, Otis Spunkmeyer, is a novel that came out this past June that is all about that. So it's
Do you have
time
a
split
copy of
between. Do I have? Oh my God, not with me. No, because I'm
I can't
I'm
believe
out of
y'all be
town
coming
doing.
on this show and not bringing your book with
it?
you.
I know. I was like, I saw the expression in their face. I'm about to get cussed out. No, it's because I happen to be traveling at the time. I can definitely make sure they all get one though. That's what I can do. I can
Well, tell
mail
us
those
about
out
the book.
immediately.
Because
Yeah,
I think the name is very interesting because
It is.
Spunkmeyer,
It has some kind of
apparently, it jumps out at
significance.
me.
Hmm.
yeah, it's literally those like muffins that you would get in the military where they would have them
Yes.
everywhere. Yeah, it's after that. And I mean they also have them in prisons, right? And in the hospital. And that's what the book is about. It's about those kinds of locations, so like the prison, the hospital, and the military, and somebody who is like living through all of those kinds of worlds, but is expected to, like make art or whatever, right? So that question, Gwen, that you asked about like whether you use it in or how different they are, it's kind of about that. The everyday constant like using your hands to ostensibly like help people and then being expected also to like think at the same time about your like long-term projects, but people in front of you are in desperate need. And how to figure out how you care for those people and yourself under those circumstances. And it takes place all over a single day in a hospital in North Philly.
Oh, so
Mm.
okay, so the setting and the plot is 24 hours, more or less. It's one day.
Yes, exactly,
And
exactly.
that's not okay, that's not common in books. Normally, it'll be a week or it'll be
No,
more than one day.
I've
I like
seen
those kind
I've
of books
seen
though.
books and movies where the entire story takes place in one day, and I really admire you guys because I think it
Not
takes a
easy.
lot of description for you to be able to follow somebody
Mm,
in a span of a few hours instead of a few days. Because there's a lot of
yeah,
description, there's probably a lot of mind work going on. Because
exactly.
you've got to be able to move this story along.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Moving
I feel like you
along.
got it. Like, you were like, oh yeah, it's like a lot of mind work, right? Like, so that's part of how the trick works immediately on the page. It's like there's so much going on in the protagonist's head, and that stuff can take a really long time, right? Or it can be condensed, and it's
Mhm.
easier to do that. And then you move back and forth between the thing that is being done with the hands and what's going on in the mind, with regards to memory and relationships to other people and stuff like that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's a really
Love it.
interesting story. Now, when you were selling your book, did you have a lot of interest, or was that like was it a quick process or a long process?
Yeah, that's a good. So, I mean, I guess we'll talk about the first one. So the memoir Sync, which was the first one that came out in 2023. Um, it was odd because I had kind of established a relationship with my editor before. So my editors, Maddie Caldwell at Grand Central Publishing, I was her intern. So I came in the game brand new and I was already like in my 20s. I didn't know anything about it because I had spent all that time doing biology, healthcare. I was like, I'm going to physician assistant school. I left that, was like, I'm going to be a doctor. It turns out none of that stuff happened. So I didn't know anything about publishing. And so I did an internship at Grand Central, and I met my now editor there. So when we were putting the book out there, it kind of went straight to her. Because we had established trust already, and I had told this to my agent. My agent also knew my editor already. And he was like, I also like this person. And I was like, I know that I want to work with this person because we established a relation and I knew the people in that office because I was an intern there. And so it was a strange thing where it took a while to get an agent and all that kind of stuff. Like that took some years to do. But after I did, the direction was really clear because I had that relation already before.
Okay. Now, your memoir that came out last year, I thought you were reaching for a copy of the book. I said, well, you got but you don't have the other one.
I know. I did look around. I'm not gonna lie. I did look around like, are we sure I didn't bring any with me?
Now, and it's called Sink, like a kitchen sink. So now,
See, Black people get it. Whenever I say like, it's only usually the Black people are like, oh, it's like the kitchen sink, right? Like, yeah, that's yes. Of course.
What do other people think? It means like sinking.
Like you sink or swim. Yeah, like that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and it can have double meaning, but the main one is the sink. Yeah.
Right. So what made you use that as your title? And then what span of your life does it cover?
Yeah, it's a good questions. It covers that are related, I think, now that I think about it. It covers about ages 8 to 13. So it's very focused on childhood, especially puberty age, like pre-puberty and during and after puberty age. And I chose sink because the sink was a symbol in my household coming up. It was like the main chore that I had as a child.
I hated
And
washing dishes.
I hate, oh my God, girl, listen, like I hated it so bad. I don't like it now. Well, part of it was that like people would put everything in there and the sink would be clogged. Since they knew like I had to do it, they would just be like, oh, let's like throw shit in there or whatever. My bad, I was trying to cuss on it. But they were like, oh, let's throw everything in there. And then you would have to go and like reach your hand in the like murky water and pull these gross things out. Yeah, exactly. So you know what I'm talking about. And that became the metaphor for the book. It was about having to do that, about like and then because the book is about that age, you're like learning how, like, what is right or wrong, like who are you as a person, how do you relate to other people, things that feel good or things that feel bad to you, especially with regards to like sexual awareness and puberty and stuff like that. So that became the overarching metaphor, and the sink is like the kind of physical location of like trying to pull that stuff out, and getting cut by things while it's horrible.
We didn't have murky water. My mother didn't have us washing like that. We had our stuff on the side. I still hated it, but my sister
playing games.
So she would do 1 week, and then I would do the other week. So at least I had a week off. We at first we started trading days, but 1 day, alternating days. But we decided a week. That way somebody could not have to do it for a whole week. And so we did it like that.
Y'all had some real strategy and cooperation when y'all was little. What is happening? I could never have done that with my siblings or my aunt, who also lived with us. They would not have let that ride at all. But y'all was organized. Look, y'all was getting things accomplished that would not have been happening.
We got her organization, honestly.
Yeah, my brothers never had to wash a dish, but they were younger, so they never washed a dish. It was
Mhm.
just me and my sister. So it was two and two. So she was the oldest, and then I was second. And so, but the boys never washed a dish. They never did. So
I can't imagine. I try to tell my kids to do it now, but they do it so bad that I'm like, oh, I'm gonna wash these dishes myself.
they
I
do
can't
it
even.
bad on purpose. I'm gonna just tell
Yeah,
you
I
that.
know. I'm
Yeah,
like, oh,
yeah.
I
I tried
know, I
that
know.
once, but I got a whipping for it, so that was it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can
So
see
funny.
it.
Oh Lord, she didn't know. She saw through all of that. So, and we, corporal punishment was the norm when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Everybody got it. So there was no like 911 or none of that. You didn't call it. And if you did, you didn't dare call it. Let me say that if it did exist. So it
These
was
kids know I'm too soft now.
yeah,
They
I
know I'm
mean,
too
yeah,
soft
yeah.
now, so they,
Never
they just doing
know.
whatever. They just in the house doing whatever. I'm like, all right, man.
The
It's
parents
rough.
got soft. So, it's all it goes hand in hand. I guess, then maybe they just got tired or just, they're
Hmm.
working all the time.
Yeah,
So a lot of times you just say, well, what's really important? You try to focus on what's really important.
yeah.
Because those years, them growing up, they go by fast. They're over, like, it's like a blur. They just go by like that. My daughter's 28. I only have one child. And Rhonda has one daughter as well, a little bit younger than mine.
Yeah, mine is 25.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
those,
okay.
those years.
Do they know each other?
No, not
No, they
well,
have to meet one day.
they've never met. No, only
Okay,
by reference.
Right.
okay, okay.
I tell my daughter's name is Sylvia, and she's named after her paternal great great grandmother. So that's how she got her name. But it's an old name. She says she rarely meets a Sylvia unless it's a Hispanic. She said sometimes she meets Hispanic
Yeah,
Sylvia.
I was. Yeah.
But and Rhonda's daughter's name is really different.
Yeah, my daughter's name is Beautiful.
Oh,
That's a real name.
yeah, that's sweet.
Not her name is beautiful. Her name is beautiful.
Yeah.
At first I knew, and then when you said it again, I was like, wait, now you're trying to turn it around.
Yes, her name
Oh,
is Beautiful Lawson.
This is nice.
so how do your two books differ? Like, are they dramatically different, the two books, or are they kind of similar in terms of I know one's a memoir, but
Hmm.
is your writing style shown in both books? Is
Yeah.
it kind of similarly shown?
I think it's really different. I think I'm trying to think of the in common stuff. I mean, one of the subject matter wise, in common, it's like I'm really interested in especially like the kinds of Black people who we don't always talk about or try to care for in like kind of capital L literature or whatever, right? Which is like people who do things wrong that we are supposed to be too embarrassed about, or we're supposed to spend all of our time condemning the thing that they did instead
Hmm.
of like thinking about them as a person. I think that's true across both books. And I think the writing is really different. I do still really love long sentences and kind of like long sentences, Black vernacular, kind of attention to the things that kids say or do. Like those things are related more so in the first with the kid stuff. But I think they're really different in the sense that the consciousnesses are different. So in the second book, it's a person who knows a lot about the world, right? Like who somebody who reads pretty pretty well, like or at least averagely, and who can like articulate things, who is like has higher education. And in the memoir, I'm really interested in like how you describe things that you don't have language for yet, either because of being undereducated based on the kinds of public schools I went to, or just being so young and trying to recognize and think through things that even the adults in your life can't describe to you.
Hmm.
Right? And sometimes that's making sense of like people's behavior. especially people who are supposed to be like more mature and or caring for you and who can't sometimes. So I think the language is really different because of those things.
Do you think, excuse me, it sounds like characterization is pretty important in your book as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, I think that there's always people being like, oh, is it more plot? Is it more character kind of thing? Um, I do think the way that people feel about each other, like I'm really interested in the way people feel about each other that isn't not the way that we're like trained to feel about each other or that we're supposed to
Mm-hmm.
say, but the way that people really feel about each other and how they try to describe it to one another.
Right.
And that for me is kind of or like fail to do so or something, right? Like so you have like in the second book, for example, one of the central relationships is between a mother and a son. And it's kind of like, okay, the mother had the son when she was really young. She was 14 when she had him and was in a hard place and didn't have any support. And so it's more like growing up with that person. And then what happens when you're both adults of roughly the same maturity level. Sometimes the child is more mature and like the mother's trying to be a mom, like as you would see on like a television sitcom or something like that. But that's never happened for their whole history, right? So how do they learn to talk to each other in a way that is like kind of like respectful, but isn't trying to have a relationship that they can't have? That's not real, or that's not possible. So it's that kind of stuff for me, and that's what drives the story forward. People trying to figure that kind of stuff out.
Yeah, people who have children at a very young age, it's almost like they grow up together.
Yeah.
And when you're like 28 or 29 and you have a 15-year-old, I can't imagine navigating that. I know people do it. I just my
Mm-hmm.
my imagination, I can't. I remember being 14. I was in no way prepared for motherhood. And it's that gotta be very challenging. It's challenging to write about.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I do. I
You
think it's
get
important.
to the
I think it's
mind of
important to.
your character. Mhm.
I mean, it's true. So my mother was a really young mother, had me when she was really young. I have a lot of friends who had their either only kid or first kid when they were super young, when we were teenagers, just
Mhm.
coming into that age. And I think it has a lot to do, with I mean, some of their kids should be babysitting mine, but I'm gonna let that ride. Um, it has a lot to do with like how we come to know each other through talking about the kids or through like watching the kids grow up. And so like I'm all the time thinking about those things and having those experiences because that's the kinds of relationship a lot of my friends have, or the kinds of relationships that I have to a lot of my friends' kids sometimes too. It's kind of a combination of all of those things. And then, when you're close enough to somebody, you end a lot of what your conversations end up being is about people's really deep insecurities about either how they can care for their kid, right? Like how like the people who depend on you most, are you letting them down? If so, how? And what are the things that you might feel like you need to do better? And a lot of the of conversations I have now, especially in my 30s, and friends in their 40s, 50s, and some in their 20s too, are about that. It has a lot to do with like how we collectively think about raising our kids, especially folks who had them when they were really young too, and whose kids might even be older now.
Hmm. Well, what has been the reception like for both of the books?
Yeah,
Like
I
your
think it's been
review?
pretty good. I think that they both got reviewed well. Um,
Good.
so that's important, because sometimes you might not get one at all, or you might get one and it's horrible or something like that. And then the second one, the novel, just maybe a week or so ago, won the Center for Fiction First Novel Prize, which is the first
Oh,
thing that
congratulations.
ever happened. Yeah, thank you.
It's
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Validation is good when you're a writer. We're both writers. So
Yeah.
we recognize that because it is such a solitary exercise, it's good to get validation
Right.
Yeah.
for your work.
Yeah, writing can definitely be solitary. I mean, yes, you can have writing partners, you can go to events, but when it comes down to writing, often you're doing it by yourself. So just as Gwen said, when somebody recognizes all of that time that you spent by yourself
Yeah.
and you did it well, it means
Seriously.
something.
It definitely does. Do y'all write together and like read each other's work as first readers?
No, we've never
No,
done that
Okay.
yeah,
so far, but doesn't mean we won't do it in the future.
Yeah.
We
right.
kind of in different stages, and I don't know if I would want Rhonda to read be my one of my first readers because she would be too critical.
Like you'd be too critical.
No, I we just have never even thought about doing that. And
Mm-mm.
if we did think about it, we would talk about it. I mean, it's
Right.
we wouldn't be shy about it. And right now, I'm not writing I'm focusing on children's books right now. So
Mhm.
my next book is going to be another installment in the series that I've done about
Oh,
children,
nice.
teaching them how to be entrepreneurs. So that's my next book is going to be on that.
Okay.
My novels and my two novels that I have took 5 years apiece. So it's just too, uh, it's a lot of time. It takes me long to write
It
fiction.
does.
Yeah.
I'm better at nonfiction or children's books as far as speed. But
Mhm.
my novels are very well developed and thought out, good character development, great reviews, but they took me 5 years apiece. Each one took
Mhm.
5 years, and it's a series. So I don't know if I'm the next one, if I get to it, who knows? And maybe I'll let Rhonda read my first two chapters, and then I'll know if I needed to go forward or not. On
Well,
Yeah.
I'll be doing the
such
same
an
thing. I
idea.
have a lot of writing to do in 2026.
Yeah. Well, so what are you going to do in 2025?
You
It's
skipping that year?
2025 is over.
Skipping a year. No, this is you skipped a year around it somewhere in your
Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. See, that's how much writing I
You
have to do.
skipped it.
I
If
forgot
you
what
skipped it
year it
already,
was.
I mean, look.
Okay, no, I have a lot of writing to do in 2025, but
okay.
I have some editing that I have to finish in 2024 so I
Okay.
can get to 2025.
Okay.
And I'm quite sure I'll be doing something in 26 too. So we're gonna leave that one
Oh,
alone.
you too. So we're actually a little bit over our time. So
Oh,
Oh, we sure
okay.
are.
here we are. So we because we have one final guest, and she's in the waiting room. But thank you so much for being a guest on the show. It's been great conversation, and continued success with your work. And
Thank you for having
congratulations
me.
on your new award.
Thanks, y'all. Y'all have a good one.
Okay,
You
have a good
too.
one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, sometimes when you look at the time, it's you still got 5 minutes, and then it goes by fast.
I
So
know that's exactly what happened because when I looked at the clock, it was like where I am, it was
25.
9:22.
So what? I think Lydia won the book. I believe
I
Lydia.
don't know. I hope she did because I can't see it where I am.
Yeah, she did. I think so.
Okay.
Okay. So next, our final guest is someone because I said the first three guests were new to the show; they had never been guests before, and our final guest is Trisha Thomas, and she's been, I think, she's been on one other time. I think, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, because I think you were on for What Passes as Love when that book came out. That was the last time you were on the show. And she's connecting her audio so we can hear her. And while that's connecting, you all might probably know her best from her Napoli Ever After series. That's the one she had several Napoli books. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, wasn't there a TV movie or something?
Yeah, what's the night Lathan?
Yeah, it was Annihilation. That's right. That's right. And I saw it. I actually saw it. Now I remember. So, Trisha, welcome back to Black Authors Matter TV. Is the
I don't
audio
think she can hear
working?
you yet. I think she's still trying to connect her audio. you may have to start over again. Maybe log out and then come back in. I don't know if you can hear us.
Is your audio button working on the, did you see
No,
an
she
audio?
tried to connect the audio and then it said it couldn't connect. So she's trying again.
Okay.
There it is.
Okay, so now we just need to unmute.
All right.
Yay.
So, well,
Worst.
welcome back to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. So good to
Thank
see
you for being here.
Yeah. I think you were on in like 2021 or something like that.
It feels like it was yesterday, but yeah.
I didn't check, but it wasn't any later than 2022. That I know. It wasn't 2023 of this year. So,
Yeah.
but because when the what passes as love, I read it, but I don't remember if I read it before you came on or after you came on. But I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was What Passes as Love. That was my first historical fiction.
Right.
So now.
And now you have a new book out called, do you have a copy of it?
I do.
The Secret
Very
Keeper.
good. The Secret Keeper of Main Street.
Yes, this was so much fun to write, but yes, this is the second one. It's based in 1954. My fictional town, Mendel, Oklahoma, because I didn't want to make anybody in my family mad at me. So I made up a little small town that represented a couple of different little spaces, and it's set in the Jim Crow era and about a young woman who is a dressmaker. She designs gowns and she does alterations, and she also has the ability to know whether or not a bride is marrying her true love.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like a mystical aspect to it.
I'm about to say, does it depend on the type of dress she asks for?
Was it like the guy that she get when she's doing the
it's a
fitting?
mystical mystery of a dressmaker. Yeah. But no, you know what? I was a dressmaker for many, many, many years. And so this story was just dying to come out of me. And yeah, I loved it. Love writing it.
That's some trivia I didn't know about you. I thought weren't you in the fashion industry?
I mean,
no,
I mean, the fashion as I got was the design of the gowns. I mean, this is just something that I've always done. I never, took it outside of my own bridal salon. I designed there, and I had two seamstresses as well as myself, and so everything was made and custom made, and it was just my own work. I make a lot of my own clothes, but I wasn't in the industry per se.
Okay.
I had attempted to work for a company when I first got out of school, and it was a big company. I won't say their name, but their initials are CR. And like they were in every mall. I don't know about now, but I did think, I finally have arrived, and to make the designs, they used to send me into dressing rooms with a camera to take pictures of other people's clothing.
Okay. I'm glad you finished that sentence, because I'm like, what?
Yeah, that was the extent of their design.
So your job was to not have your designs even considered.
No, not even considered.
It was to take pictures of other people's designs.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That wouldn't be fun. It
wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. And I did it, maybe 2 or 3 times before I just collect. I have to go home. I can't do this anymore. anymore. It was just it. So that was my fashion industry experience, and I decided to open my own bridal salon. So I did.
Oh, okay. Now, where was it? Where did you have the salon?
Where?
Where? Mhm.
Where in
What part of
California?
the country? Okay,
In
California.
Yeah,
Riverside?
yeah, yes, yes.
Okay. My mom used to live in Moreno Valley once upon a time.
Oh, yeah, that's like around the corner from me. Yeah, yeah, but yeah, it's an ever-growing area. We always laugh when people use it for the butt of their jokes in these sitcoms and everything. Like they probably have never even been here. Like they don't know. It's lovely.
So you had your own salon where you did custom bridal work.
Yes,
Did you do the whole wedding party or just the bride?
everything. Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Top to
Wow, that's nice.
bottom, mother to the
Mm.
flower girl, and everything in between.
Oh,
Yeah, every single
I'm
part.
sure that that's really hard work, but very
skilled work.
rewarding.
It's skilled work.
It was a lot of work. I enjoyed it very much. It, I mean, I probably wouldn't have even stopped if my husband didn't get a transfer. He moved us to Virginia, and so I had to sell, the business.
Oh, okay. What part of Virginia?
Um, we were in Fairfax.
Okay, so that's outside. That's in your area, rather. The
Right. But was this these moves were due to the military?
No, no,
Oh, okay.
no.
Because my
But
mom was
yeah, that was,
stationed, she was in Moreno Valley because she was in the Air Force there.
oh, yeah.
And so that's and then when you said you moved to Virginia, I was like, okay, well maybe it's the military that had y'all moving.
Uh, yeah, I think I've always, because I'm from San Diego, so I've always lived around the military, always. But I have absolutely no association with it whatsoever, which is strange. But I always lived in very deeply ingrained military cities.
I see. And San Diego is quite military.
Yeah. Oh, we have every branch.
Yeah, that's near the water, so there's a Navy there.
Yeah, quite
Mhm.
military and also
Mhm.
quite law enforcement. We have a
Yeah.
lot of customs and border protection, a lot of border patrol there
Mhm.
Yes.
and field operations.
Yeah.
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 You guys are well protected in San Diego.
Very protected. Yeah, so I mean, I've lived in a lot of different places and I had a lot of different careers, I would say probably more than the average person. But the one thing I always came back to was the design and the dressmaking. And I remember once the film Napoli Ever After came out, my agent and I were trying to sit around like, what next? What do we do next? And I I just I really did not know because, how do you follow up with after a movie? What do you write? And so she knew about the bridal salon and she's like, why don't you write a story, about, being in this bridal salon around it wasn't historical the way we had come up with it, but around all of these brides and, think of a story around, being around all these brides. And because I had told her all these stories and she was just like, gobstock, like this is a lot, and I was really young at the time. So it was always emotional. And so it just felt like it was time to, tell a story surrounding, the energy and the emotion. And I just happened to throw a body in there and make it a murder mystery a little bit, but no one ever died on my watch or in the bridal salon. But I did really, really, really want to tell the story of how, these brides bring their energy into these situations, and you just can't help but want to, give them advice and help them. And I didn't have the second sight. I couldn't touch anyone and tell what was going on, but I knew like almost immediately as soon as they would because it was such a quiet, experience getting fitted, measured, and the fittings, that I would always get this sense about them. And they would start talking, and sure enough, I'm thinking, this is not the person you're supposed to marry, or this is not going to last, or you're stepping into something you probably shouldn't be stepping into. And so I had those experiences all the time.
Yeah, there's coercion sometimes from all kinds of sources. It could be parents, it could be your future in-laws, or the groom. Sometimes it's people get married because they're pressured to get married.
I know. I had a saying that, the brides got married for their families, and the fiancés got married for their for themselves.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, same thing.
So there was always that element that, sometimes I would ask, are you doing this for you? Or are you doing this for your family?
That can be true. I know that was true for my first one. It was for the family. But
first
my
one.
first one was for the family. It didn't take a long time. You have to get married because you want to be married to the person and you see your future with the person. So,
Yeah.
So I've been married for 32 years now.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, 32 years. So you
That's
have
beautiful.
to want to be with the person that you and see yourself having a life with the person in the future.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and in the story, I have to say, my character Bailey did her best to try to talk to these brides, is this really what you want? And they always believed it was best. It didn't matter, whether they were in love or not in love, it was what was best for them and their families. And I don't think, a lot has changed, but, it's it's definitely one of those situations where you have to say the most minimalist thing. You don't want to be that person that tries to influence someone's decision.
Yeah, because you don't want to be blamed either way.
Right. Right.
And so, a lot of times for the family is really like their expectations is what it comes into it. And so we live and learn.
Yes. Yes.
Not every
definitely.
decision is the right one on the first time, or just life is choice driven, and some choices are hopefully on balance we make many more good choices than we do bad.
Right. Right.
And life is long, like you said, there's chances to move on.
Yeah. So. And sometimes you have to take them.
Yeah.
That's why
So do you think you'll ever make this book into a movie?
Well, it's of course the dream, of course, always. And it's, being batted around. So, but it just takes absolutely the longest time. I mean, it takes a year and a half for me to write a book. And, it is nothing compared to how long a film, or should I say a Black film, has to go through the struggle of getting made. It's just a little bit longer, I think.
Well, with happily Napoli ever after.
Yeah.
What was it like to actually see that story in film? And were you happy with the way, because the book is never going to be the same as the movie. As much as we want the movie to be just like the book, it's never going to be exactly the same. But do you think they did a good job of depicting your story?
I do. That was, gosh, it took forever for me to finally see it. I think I hadn't seen it until I read the script over and over. They had like 10 different versions of the script, but I didn't see the movie till probably month before it came out. And
Mm.
so I had already, thought the worst and imagined it just being awful. And so when I finally saw it, I was just like, oh, thank you, God. It was, it was just everything, I dreamed of on the good dreams when I had the good dreams, not the bad dreams. It was just really,
Not the nightmares.
yeah, not the nightmares. It was like everything I imagined it being. And I was there for the filming on set, so I got to see a lot of the characters and everything taking shape, and it still didn't capture it edited and put on screen and all the beautiful music. It was just, yeah, it was a dream come true. It was perfect to me. And yeah, it was kind of hard listening to not, reading the things on Twitter like, oh, Napoli. I mean, they were like, most of it was good. I would say 7 out of 10 was good,
But it's
but then
always those three that you look at.
who were just
It can be
like,
really, really brutal, just heartless.
yeah, brutal.
Yeah.
It's a
Mhm.
good
You
word.
can say you didn't like something without just like being, putting a butcher knife in and trimming it.
Yeah, it was hard hearing some of that stuff, but I was just like, what movie are you watching? It was great to me. So that's just how I felt about it. And I still, get that kind of feedback. It's like, this is my favorite movie when I'm sick or when I'm feeling down. This is the movie that I watch. And it's just one of those things I hope carries on. And they were talking about doing it part 2 and a series and all of those things. They're still in, like I said, it takes forever for anything to happen. So they're still in, being batted around. So
Possibility.
mhm.
Now, how many Napoli books were there?
9.
That many? Wow. I thought you were going
9.
to say 3 or 4. Wow.
Wish.
So the Napoli books, what? Okay, I know they all have Napoli in the title somewhere. Do all of them have that?
No, I can name them all.
You
Napoli Ever
can.
After.
Okay. Okay.
Would I Lie to You? Not Napoli in the title. Um, Never mind. I just can't name them in order. So
In
Napoli
order.
Ever After,
Okay.
Would I Lie to You? Napoli Married, Napoli in Love, Napoli Entangled, Napoli About Us, um, Postcards from Venus, Napoli in Bloom. I don't know if that was 9, but
I didn't even realize there were 9 books.
yeah,
Because I think I've lost track of the fourth one. That's why I thought it was only 4. Like the one
Well,
with
that's
married in the title.
well,
That
you just answered the question of why didn't I write a 10th? Because I actually did write a 10th. It's called Meet Me at Maybe. And I was just so frustrated. I was like, that when people would be like, when's the next book coming out? Well, did you read the 4th or the 5th or the 6th or the 7th or the 8th
I
or the
know there
9th?
were other books you could be reading while you're waiting on this next book.
Right. So I was just like, I'm not. I finished it and everything was done. And I just said, I'm gonna save it. Maybe, for the next movie or series, when it comes out, people have more interest. But for now, I really wanted to do historical fiction. I had wanted to do historical fiction probably after the 3rd book, but you know, um, when you go into that room, it's like, what are you going to do next? And give me another Napoli, and
want to build on what you've already put out there.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. And I have an audience, this is a great audience. I mean, they
Yeah.
love Venus so much that I could have, just kept going. But, I really wanted to do something else. So that is how What Passes as Love
And the secret keeper
yeah,
of
Secret
Main
Keeper
Street.
of Main Street.
Okay. When did Napoli Ever After come out? Because has it been 20 years?
Yeah.
Because we were selling it in our store. I remember when it first came out when we had a mortar store, and we were.
Yeah.
It was like 2004 or five, somewhere in there. Maybe?
No, the first book came out in 2000.
Okay. Okay. So,
Yeah.
so we had the sequels too. We were selling them.
Yeah. Right. And that's always hard to, explain to people, like, you wrote a book 20, 4 years ago. Like, yes, I did. And it didn't become a movie until, 5 years ago. But that it literally had been optioned for film, by Halle Berry before the book was even printed. And so that was a long wait. It was a very, very long wait. And so I
That's a
tell you,
lesson in being patient.
Never see the light of day.
I know.
Most of the books that are optioned don't actually get to be turned into films. People just sit on them.
Yeah.
They want the option and they want to take it off
to sit on it.
Somebody else. Right. So, but you do get paid for the option.
Yeah.
So the author gets paid for the option. So
right. Yeah. It's like the Earl's Supremes, the Supreme.
Yeah, the Supreme, the one that's on, is it on Hulu and Netflix now?
I think so. I
yeah,
think
but it's not about the
not about the group.
Right.
Yeah. But that was optioned like very close to well, mine kept getting re-optioned, but that one was optioned, I think, in 2004, and it just came out. So it was 20 years as well. But that is kind of like the thing I was saying about, a certain, skin tone. that just, we've got to wait. We just have to wait. And I don't know what they're doing in there, but it just takes longer. The Emperor of Ocean Park is another one. That one took about
yeah, that came out a long time ago.
So
look at it back. I don't know if I have the platform. I can't remember what it's on. Seems like whatever it's on, I don't have.
MGM. I saw it. It was good.
Okay, I think I had a 7-day free trial, and I saw some other stuff in the 7-day app, because I didn't want to do a long-term commitment. So I might go back and do a short term, like 1 month, and then turn it off. Because I don't want to have like gazillion streaming services,
Yeah.
I try to limit it to 4, or so. And so anyway, Trisha, I'm so excited that you're still writing after all these years.
Thank you.
And you followed your passion of doing historical fiction. And
show us the book one more time.
Yes.
The dress, I wanted to see how she was dressed.
Oh.
Yeah. And she had the white gloves and the pearls on the arm. So,
yeah. I picked this person out, and of course, the little secret is that she was absolutely a white woman, and I was just like, can you darken her up a lot? And they kept and so they kept putting the screen over it, and like I was like, okay, if that, they're like, we can't do it any further or it will change the color. Well, and this dress was supposed to be blue, but because they kept putting the layers and layers and layers over it, ended up black, and so I was just like, that's fine, but I really wanted to make sure that she represented us. And so but I loved her look and everything about it. So I mean, it was pretty much the first time I got asked or was so involved, even in the cover. I never got asked about the covers for the Napoli books, although I loved them all, even when they redid the covers with the afros and the flowers and everything. I think that was in 2015. I love those covers too. So, but this was the first time I got to be involved in the cover. And so really proud of it. I'll show it again.
At the end of the show. So thanks so much, Trisha, for being on the show, and continued success to you. I've already ordered my copy of your book. It hasn't come yet. I was hoping it would be here by the day.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm glad you guys still have this great show. It's important.
Okay.
And I have my t-shirt from last time. I sent you a picture and I modeled it. So yeah, it's cool.
Okay, I have to take a look. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Happy holiday.
Bye-bye. Have a great night.
Happy holiday. Merry Christmas and Happy New
holidays.
Year. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so this is the last show of 2024. We won't be back until January 7th with the first show of 2025, because the next 2 Tuesdays are holidays, Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. So we'll be off and you all can do something else on your Tuesday, but we want you to be back with us on January 7th. So this is the end of the year, and have a happy new year. I am out. I'm Gwen Richardson signing off.
And I'm Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Have a wonderful evening and a great week. And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and all the other good things.
Thank you for tuning in, and join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for another edition of Black Authors Matter TV.